Hey everyone, it is Sunday, September 29th. I just pulled a double of second and third shift doing my CNA job that I do only on the weekends. So yesterday I talked about pretty much wanting to discussing about what I went through with exes and the domestic violence, on having my son young and the abandonment stuff. I'm going to talk about today pretty much get into details of what happened with my son's dad and my son's, or my ex-husband. So, I know I said that my ex-fiance was, he is bipolar and schizophrenic, and he was going untreated and everything. Everything was fine at first, and once my son and I moved in with him, things dramatically changed. I basically knew about the fact that he was getting treatment when he was a child. He went through a lot of stuff as a child too. Basically, he was in foster care a lot, and the stuff that was happening in the home he grew up in was pretty messed up. So, that being said, him going untreated was not a good thing. Since the fact that he eventually got physical with me a couple times, and then was verbally abusive with me. And it got really, basically what happened was it got so intense sometimes that we would be verbally arguing and screaming at each other, and we would wind up calling law enforcement to get, mediate between us two, so that one of us wasn't going to get arrested for getting physical with each other. So it got to a point where it was like he one time stole the keys to the car that we bought together and I was using, and I was supposed to take my son to school, and it got to a point where it was like I had to call my dad, who lived in the same town, to go help pick him up and take him there, because he works out at the farm that we now live on. And it's not too far from his school, so yeah, it was just messed up. What happened with my ex-husband and I was the fact that he, like I said, he was going untreated for bipolar and a mood disorder, and I saw red flags. He was abused as well as a child and as a teenager, and I saw red flags and red signs that he was going untreated for something. So when he got charged and he was arrested for getting physical with my son, and got physical with me, CPS immediately got involved. And basically, how do I explain this? So when CPS got involved, they wanted to make sure my son and I stayed on top of therapy for our mental health. My son was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety, and a little bit of depression. Not too much. It was mostly anxiety and the PTSD. They wanted to make sure that he was not going to eventually later on grow up to be aggressive or go through it as a child and as a teenager and rebel and do things out of anger and whatnot. So they wanted to make sure he was getting treated. Plus, they didn't want him to eventually start self-harming and whatnot. So they were concerned about his mental health and mental state, and didn't want what happened between him and my ex-husband to affect him growing up. So as soon as they got involved, they made sure that they were helping me make sure that we had the resources what we need, because obviously I don't get much in child support from my son's birth dad since he's in prison, and I mainly survive off of my income. My family does help us out, but they only help out with a home, some help with some housing bills at the time being for temporary, and they're helping provide for to help give my son what he needs, like if he needs new clothes or whatever, or school supplies, they help out with that. So other than that, everything else I pay for on my own. To go, basically, they wanted to make sure we are staying on top of our mental health, that they saw that they made me go through a psych evaluation where they determined that I had depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and borderline personality disorder, and they were trying to figure out if rule out that I have autism spectrum disorder. So they wanted to make sure I was getting proper treatment for that, and they also wanted to make sure I was going through some parenting classes and stuff, because I allowed my ex-husband to be involved when he was on probation and just got out of jail, and that was stupid on my part for doing so. And nothing happened when I did so. Nothing bad happened again when he was involved again, shortly after he got out of jail. But the fact that he was on probation, red flag right there, that we shouldn't have done that. They basically, since then, like I said, I filed for a divorce in March or April of 2019 this year, and our divorce was finalized in December. We were trying to be civil, and we were trying to work things out and go to therapy, but some things could not get resolved. He's now getting proper help and treatment right now, and we're civil, and he's doing better with his moods and everything, unlike I can say for my ex-fiance. So that being said, anybody who has ever gone through verbal abuse or physical abuse from a partner, whether in a relationship, an open relationship, or married to them, or engaged, or whatever, or just whatever the situation may be, please, 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 don't feel like you're bothering me. You can reach out to me. I understand that if you're being threatened and you don't want to go to law enforcement and report it to the police, because that guy might come back, or woman, that person may come back and have somebody else or themselves beat the living crud out of you, or basically beat the living crud out of you till you are dead. I understand that I've been threatened once before, for letting people I had no idea that they were doing certain drugs in my home, and I knew they were smoking weed. Yeah, it's not legalized here in Wisconsin. But I was aware of the fact that they were smoking weed, but I didn't know that they were doing other drugs and sharing it with other people that they were bringing into the home, and they kept some of that information from me. And this was happening in 2013. Well, were having friends over left and right, having parties, drinking, smoking weed, Some of them were doing drugs, some of them were giving the drugs to other people, and from, I, this is hard to talk about. Two of the guys, and I blocked a lot of it out, so if I stumble upon parts of pieces, it's not because I'm lying, it's because I blocked a lot of it out, and I've used therapy techniques to help cope and deal with it. Because once I start sometimes talking about it, I start having flashbacks, PTSD moments. So, two of the guys were high and drunk and took advantage of me. They sexually assaulted me, and I don't want to remember any of it. I never reported it because it was my word against theirs. There was not a whole lot of evidence to go back on that there was not a whole lot of evidence to go back of that they did so. And it basically was my word against theirs, and the fact that, well, they could come back and say, well, she let us in the home, and there was drugs around, and there's this around, and I have a minor son involved, living with me full time, and I was afraid of losing custody and rights to my son. A lot of people think just because of the fact that CPS is involved because of my ex-husband that I don't have rights to my son or don't have him full time or whatever. That's not true. So technically, I have full sole custody of him still. He just splits physical placement now, court order wise, with me and my parents, and it's always been kind of like that anyways, just not legal documentation wise, because of the fact that who's gonna take care of him when I'm at work, especially in second or third shift, and school hours are only 8 to 5, or 8 to, his school is 8:20 to 3:20, so, and he's in extracurriculars, but they're in different towns and cities, and he needs to have somebody transportating him, so, and with CPS involved, they don't want him spending really a big amount of time home alone. We don't feel comfortable with him doing so with where we live, because it's out in the country, it's kind of secluded, and it's not really a smart and wise choice. So that being said, a lot of people talk shit and think that, oh, she doesn't have rights to her son anymore. It's not true. It has not changed. It's also, they have temporary guardianship. They like to label it that way, but literally, I have a lot of rights still to my son. If it were to come down to the fact that, I don't know how to verbally explain it, but it's not that big of a issue. The case is about to close thanks to me staying on top of therapy and doing what they want me to do, following all these rules and regulations. And the divorce, me filing for divorce and not having any physical contact with him, my ex-husband, has been helping. I'm following other rules and guidelines to help with that. And anybody who has gone through the same thing, my heart goes out to you. I don't know what else to say, but yeah, it's a lot to take in, it's a lot to discuss, it's a lot of trying not to be upset about it and let the past affect me dramatically, but I'm going to wrap this up. You guys have a good rest of your Sunday, and I will be posting another video later this week. I'm not going to do so probably maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday. For sure Tuesday, because Tuesday marks 3 years job for me, so that's a big deal. So you will not hear from me until then. Take care.